where we focus on helping you claim what's rightfully yours, your health and your freedom. We explore the three main areas of health: the physical realm, the biochemical realm, and the mental and emotional realm. We also explore all the areas of lifestyle we can find that will help you live more abundantly, regardless of where you're starting. And remember, in life, you'll either make excuses or create results. You choose. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, and I'm glad to be with you here today. Make sure to head on down to the show notes and click on the link to join our tribe of human-powered life heroes, where we'll update you on new shows, events, product launches, and so much more. Now, it's time to enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Human Powered Life podcast. As usual, we have an amazing guest for you. This is Dr. Tracy Gapin. He is a superstar in men's health. I want to welcome you to the show, bud.
Thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here. We're gonna pivot a little bit. You know, we're both into human performance. I know you're an athletic kind of guy, an active human being here. So this is going to be a lot of fun for our audience, especially the men. And if you're a woman listening and you have a man, make sure he listens to this too, right? You can point him in the right direction. So Tracy, if you wouldn't mind, I would love for you to share a little bit of your backstory, because, you know, when they're going to see MD, they're going to think just a typical medical doctor that may be just prescribing medications, but I know you've had a huge shift in the way you practice and what you do. You mind sharing a little bit of your journey?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So a little bit of background. I am a board certified urologist. I did high volume, heavy volume practice, if you will, in urology for 17 plus years, including training and school and all that. I've been in medicine for over 25 years now. And it was about 8 or 9 years ago now where I hit a wall, and I had some health challenges of my own. And I went to see a traditional medical doctor here in town, a board certified, well-respected concierge doc in town. And I was pretty sick. I had really low energy, fatigue, couldn't focus, anxiety, couldn't sleep. I was overweight. I felt like crap. And I had really been neglecting my own health for many years, you know, taking care of patients and running my practice. So I really only had myself to blame for it. But what was really remarkable about my experience was when presented with some pretty bad lab results and pretty bad issues that I was having, this doctor really had no answers for me. You know, it was, yeah, you should go exercise more, you should eat some more vegetables, and if that doesn't work, then we may put you on a statin. And that was all he had for me. That was it.
Yeah.
And you know, as a urologist at the time, I didn't know much about, you know, health optimization or longevity or how to promote health. All I knew is this disease model world of medicine that we're taught. And you know, we are really force-fed this concept of disease model medicine going all the way back to medical school, where it's all about, you know, I have this arrow diagram. On the far left of this arrow is disease and illness and symptoms, whatever they may be. And disease model medicine is focused on getting you to neutral, just getting you to some crummy baseline, and then you're good. You know, for me, your kidney stone's gone, you're peeing again, the blood's out of your urine, or your urinary infection's gone, or, you know, treating whatever disease we may have. There's nothing about promoting health, optimization, focusing on what I now coin high performance health. And so my own health issues, my own experience got me down this rabbit hole of epigenetics and functional medicine and peptides, which are amazing, hormone optimization, using wearable technology and how we can integrate physiology and technology to really start to understand how to incorporate data into optimizing health. And I used all these tools to really transform my own health. And I realized, holy cow, I'm onto something here when I started sharing it with my patients, and they started having amazing results as well. And I would have other doctors, other urologists who didn't even know what the heck I was doing, but they're like, holy cow, I feel great. I feel amazing. People tell me that I seem like a different person. What is all this? And that's when I decided that I found my passion. I found my passion and purpose in life to help really optimize men's health and optimize men so they could be what I like to say, the husband, father, leader that they're really truly meant to be. And so I made a massive leap of faith, and I jumped off this figurative cliff of traditional medicine. And last year I left.
Wow.
I literally left. I left a lucrative, high volume urology practice. I was a partner in for over 15 years, and I created the Gapin Institute for High Performance Health. And my focus is 100% on optimizing health now, taking people, both men and women, from that neutral point, from that baseline point to peak performance, to optimize health, to understanding what the weaknesses are and how to really change our perspective on health entirely.
Yeah. And that's phenomenal. I love that story because you couldn't have said it really any better. Like that continuum of health. I mean, I talk about this in our practice, like the sickness, disease, death, neutral zone, like, and then the opposite end is like, we'll call wellness or lifestyle, whatever it is. Most people are just going from neutral to crisis, back and forth. Yeah. And I know that's obviously, when you were seeing people in your tradition, in your medical practice, I mean, they were not coming in like, hey, doc, I want to be great. They're like, no, something's really not working right.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah. So I have a question for you actually, because I've spoken to many medical doctors and the answers of this question seem to be pretty similar. You're talking like disease-based medicine. We like you said. So when you go in medical school, which I know is not easy schooling at all, how much nutrition, how much of that like optimization schooling did you get?
Oh, that's pretty comical. Yeah, and I know it's somewhat of a rhetorical question, but yeah, the answer is none. We got not one single day of learning how to incorporate nutritional approaches. Nothing about how to address sleep, which is underappreciated. Nothing to address stress and how stress is truly crushing us. It's crushing our health. Never any focus on that. And remarkably, after 4 years of medical school, 6 years of urology and general surgery training, not one single lesson on hormone optimization. Hormones. I mean, crazy. Yeah. It's such an important part of how our bodies function.
Yeah.
Nothing on that at all. And so what I've learned is that there's this real gap in our education and our knowledge that really is unfortunate. And it's really the reason why we do what we do. We're taught, unfortunately, that find the ICD-9, now it's ICD-10 code, the diagnosis code, and then here's the treatment, here's the prescription medication typically for it. And that's it. And that's all we're focused on.
Yeah.
And so it's all about, my mission is to really transform and reinvent the way we approach health. And it's incorporating all these different pieces. And, I have a number of functional medicine colleagues who are friends of mine. I love them dearly and they're great, but they're missing the point as well, because they're also focused on disease. Yes, root cause. That's part of what I do is understanding root cause. But there's still this gap of taking it to the next level. And that's where we really need to focus. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting when we think of this big picture that, the word doctor means to teach. And like, if you're learning on like disease-based medicine, like we're teaching our patients disease, like come in when it's bad. So like, it's like this disease itself, right? Like the actual, listen, emergency medicine, I'm 100% all for. God forbid I've broken bones and done bad things in my life, and love that we have that. But that's never, like you said, that's never to get you to that optimization, never to get you to jump past that. So in your journey, like getting out of that pain-based or that disease-based model, do you have anything or things that you've done that you've like were like the most transformative, like one single thing, like you took a course or you found a functional medicine doctor or you, whatever it may be, like what was like that pivot, like when you started to change things? Hey, we're giving you a short break here where you can head down to the show notes or lifestylelocker.com and join our tribe of human-powered life heroes. You'll be the first to know about new shows, events, product launches, affiliate specials, and more. And now, back to the show.
It was an epigenetic certification program that I went through.
Okay.
And so let me just explain for the listeners, for those who haven't heard prior talks about epigenetics. Epigenetics is simply the integration of our lifestyle and our genetics, the integration of how our behaviors can affect our gene expression, good or bad, to affect our health, good or bad. And so what I mean by that is understanding the science behind how what we eat affects our genetics, as well as how our genetics affect how our body responds based on what we're eating as well. Understanding those sort of nuances, understanding what foods are right for you and not right for you and why at an actual scientific, individualized genetic basis. And there's real science behind all of this. Why some people, I see so many men come in and they're doing the keto diet and they're running on a treadmill and they can't lose any weight and they're just looking for testosterone. Testosterone is what they heard is the answer. I hear that every day. Well, come to find out when we run their genetics that based on their genes related to carbohydrate metabolism, for example, they actually do better with higher complex carb intake.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example. And then on the training side of it, their body does better with interval sprint burst training versus endurance training. And so that's how we can really individualize health by making it personalized and finding out what's exactly right for your body. And that's really the science of epigenetics. And so to come back to answer your question, it's that understanding of how critical the lifestyle and the medicine and the genetics and the wearable tech and the data all merge together into this beautiful symphony, if you will. And you can't focus on any one single part of that and get the same results.
Yeah. So I have a question. You mentioned technology and incorporating that in for data. What are I'm a gear junkie when it comes to these types of things. What are the tools that you're using with your clients?
Sure. Yeah. So I love wearable tech, and I truly believe it's the future of health and performance when we can look at personalized data and understand how to use that data. So I love wearable devices such as, and I don't want to use any specific brands, but I'll say there are watches, there are rings, there are
I'm wearing both of them right here.
There you go. There you go. Well, I love it. I normally wear at least two at a time as well. And so these devices, without being brand agnostic, because it's really a matter of which one will you use. So a lot of guys like to ask me, which one do you recommend? Well, I'll recommend the one that you're going to be compliant and actually use long term. And so the things that we want to track are things like heart rate variability and resting heart rate. These are measures of our body's stress, our internal stress. And I don't mean distress like anxiety about finances or about your marital life or kids or whatever, or COVID. I'm talking about like internal stress, like high cortisol and your system's not functioning properly because of toxins, hormones, nutrition, poor sleep, lack of exercise, overtraining, whatever it may be. It's causing stress to your body. And we can measure that through things like heart rate variability and resting heart rate. And so I'll give you an example to put this into context perspective. I had a guy Tommy, a client of mine, every week, Friday, his heart rate variability would plummet, which is bad. That means that you have high stress equals low heart rate variability. That's not good. That's not ideal. And so when we dove deep into understanding his lifestyle and his behaviors and why the heck is this happening every Friday, come to find out every Thursday night was date night with his wife and he would go out drinking. That's the one night a week he would drink alcohol. And we saw directly from his data how that was affecting his body's function, his stress, his internal stress levels, if you will. And so that's how you can use that data to understand and to reverse engineer what the heck is going on with your body.
Yeah, that's 100% true. I'm the same person. That was alcohol was a big messer with me with my HRV, as well as coffee after I think it's 2:00. Literally, like I could go like 2:03 and I know my sleep is not going to be well. My HRV is going to crash the next day.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and you mentioned sleep, I really think that tracking sleep is critical to truly understand the quality of your sleep, not just how long you're sleeping, which is what most guys will say. Yeah, I'm sleeping fine. I went to bed at 11, woke up at 7, I'm fine. Well, hold on a second. Let's look at the actual data to understand your deep sleep, your REM sleep, because those actual different phases or stages of sleep are important for different reasons. And I see so many men who have maybe 7 or 8 hours a night of sleep, but they have no deep sleep at all, in which case you're not getting any restorative effect that you need.
Yeah.
So tracking sleep. And then finally, the big one that I think really is the future of health as well is continuous glucose monitoring, CGM.
Okay.
And this is one that's typically only been used for diabetics to track your blood sugars. But we're realizing now that glucose regulation, monitoring and managing and regulating your blood sugar on a regular basis is directly tied to stress levels, is directly tied to hormone production, directly tied to energy, weight loss. And again, it's taking a very individualized approach by looking at data. So how does this work? So you wear a device on your arm. It has a little cartridge attached to it that you plug it in, and it's painless to apply it. And it inserts a little sensor just under the skin, and you actually don't even feel it when you put it on. You don't even feel it being applied. But what it's doing is it's measuring your blood sugar. Actually, it's measuring the sugar levels in your interstitial fluid, which balances out with your bloodstream. So it's indirectly measuring your blood sugar continuously. Why do we care? Well, what you eat, when you eat it, and in what order you eat it directly affects your blood sugar. And that has a dramatic effect on weight loss and energy and hormone production, et cetera. So I'll give you an example here. So I find, this is actually for me personally, that oatmeal crushes me. I love steel cut organic oatmeal. And when we talk about complex carbs, sweet potatoes and quinoa, broccoli, oatmeal is actually a fairly good complex carb. And if you look at the whole big picture of what are your choices there, for me, when I eat oatmeal, my blood sugar spikes and it stays spiked for a while, which is not good. Whereas if I eat protein, a high, 20, 30 grams protein first, and then have a smaller portion of oatmeal, doesn't affect me much at all. White rice, same thing. If I eat white rice, and for most people, this is the same thing, your blood sugar is going to spike, 180, 200 for a while and then come back down. And that's not good for you. We know it's not good for you. Whereas when I eat even a salmon fillet with a bunch of broccoli or Brussels sprouts or a vegetable, and then eat the same portion of rice, almost negligible effect.
Wild.
And so the timing matters. It's fascinating. It's really cool stuff. And it's almost like you're a guinea pig. As you eat, you can see real time how that food's affecting you. And you don't have to do it long term. You could do it 2, 4, 6 weeks at a time and then stop. And you have enough information so that now I'm not wearing my CGM, but I know how to eat based on my data. And so this is the future of health. This is where we use, wearable tech data. We can talk about functional lab data, genetic data. All this data helps us really personalize and take a precise approach.
That's really neat. That's the one I have not actually heard anybody talk about. The glucose monitoring, awesome. The continuous. That's pretty neat. I'm going to definitely dive a little deeper myself personally on there. Because I'm sure with my endurance training that I'm going to find some crazy stuff that I have no idea. And I've done some lab work with a nutrition company at their science lab, and I've done 50-mile races fully fasted. I've done, all sorts of I test everything just to see my HRV and all of these different things, how they shift. And when I went and they did I don't remember the name of the test, but they did this test and they go, "Oh, you should probably eat before you run." I'm like, "Eat before? What are you, nuts? No way." And I did it. I don't remember whatever it was, but I ate something like healthy food before a run. And I'm like, holy crap, I have so much more energy in my head. I don't have that initial, I hate running type of first few miles. It was great. So being your own test dummy, but having an expert that actually can compile, not just like an HRV, but can compile all of these pieces like yourself and go, do this, and this, and then let's see how we go. And I'm sure you have awesome results. All the time. Well, I guess it's changing, but I'm sure you have awesome results with clients all the time and even yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's, I hate the term biohacking because that tends to be overused and misplayed. Mm-hmm. But the concept is that, you know, our bodies are a very complex human system. And the word complex is important in that sentence. We're not complicated. Complicated suggests that we follow an algorithm and that A plus B equals C in everybody, and that the same thing applies to everybody. We're complex in that each of us behave differently and respond differently based on obviously infinite possible factors. And so to apply these one size fits all models, I think, is where we're failing in health when we say, just take this nitric oxide supplement, or just do this amazing workout, or just take testosterone, or any one single input. You're missing the bigger picture to understand that we're very complex in that regard.
Yeah. And with, you know, being that you deal with men's health very specifically, so how do you see, when you're working with clients and we have all of this data, we have all of this stuff that you're gaining with them, how does that translate into like sex life, into performance life, into health? I mean, because health is, you know, everybody's into like, you know, like better sex and I want to have better performance, but they're really not even thinking like there is something called better health as well, like which goes along with it. Because I take care of a lot of different types of athletes in my practice, and I have a lot of sick, fit people.
Yeah.
And they think fitness means they're healthy. And that's like, that's not the truth.
Sure. So, let's address the elephant in the room. Let's just talk about sexual function real quick, because I know that's one of the most common questions and concerns that I hear. I look at addressing sexual function as a short-term solution, long-term solution. Okay, Band-Aid correction. Short-term Band-Aids are things like the blue pill and the yellow pill. A vacuum pump, vacuum erection device, or penis pump, they call it, or injection therapy, which sounds awful, but it works really well and it's fairly painless. These are all ways to address the situation when a guy is like, look, doc, I got to have sex tonight. Like, it's got to work now. Like, turn it on, flip the switch. It's got to, you know, what's the short-term fix that I can get it working right now? And those are the options for that, the options that I mentioned. But then we look at, how do we fix this so long-term this doesn't get worse, and that you're able to perform without needing those short-term Band-Aids. And that's where we look at, you know, what's the long-term solution? And this is where I look at it. And, you know, you mentioned how do we improve our health? It's understanding that sexual function is intimately tied to everything else in the body. So we could look at things, long-term solutions like GainsWave. I love GainsWave as a great treatment modality to stimulate recovery of new blood flow to the penis. After all, an erection is really literally nothing more than increased blood flow to the penis, and that blood gets trapped in the penis. Veins get compressed so it can't leave, and that engorgement is an erection. And so it's really, how do we increase blood flow? Well, GainsWave is a great way to stimulate new blood flow creation. It activates stem cells to create new blood vessels through new genesis of vascular supply, if you will. We can use PRP in combination, which is platelet-rich plasma. Again, this will stimulate stem cells, stimulate activation of new growth factors and new blood flow. But then we got to understand that just that alone will not address the whole problem if we don't understand this systems approach to health. And what I mean by that is, think of a performance bicycle wheel. My analogy I use here is a performance bicycle wheel with spokes. I know the new ones they're carbon, they don't have spokes, but imagine an old-fashioned one with spokes. And if one of those spokes are broken, that wheel doesn't work. That wheel falls apart, it doesn't function the same way. So every spoke is important. Well, that hub, that center of that wheel, is your health, is sexual function. It could be weight loss or energy or a better brain or whatever as well. The same concept applies. All of those spokes are inputs into that system to ultimately affect the outcome. And so sexual function, to have good blood flow down there, you know, blood flow is caused without getting too scientific, you need nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is produced by the blood cells, the blood vessel lining, if you will, and it stimulates relaxation to increase blood flow. Well, what affects nitric oxide secretion by that blood vessel lining? Insulin sensitivity.
And we talked about the monitor.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So So insulin sensitivity has a direct effect on your body's ability to secrete nitric oxide, which is what causes vasodilation, which is what causes increased blood flow, which is what causes an erection. So you see how insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance dramatically affects erections. And so now we can look at how sleep and stress and fitness and other hormones besides testosterone and nutrition, what we eat, when we eat, how we eat. We can look at our gut health, our detox. All those are different spokes in this wheel that are coming in as inputs to affect your system. And I see so many guys with broken spokes, and all they want is the magic pill, or they want testosterone. And that may not be the spoke that needs attention. And so the systems approach to health is part of this concept of mine of understanding that you have to take a much more comprehensive approach.
Yeah. And I often see like the short-term quick fixes, as we call them, often have long-term consequences. Like you're describing what, like, and you may have said this in the past in other shows, but like you're going upstream first. Like, okay, if we don't address these things, no matter what we do, if we do gains wave, if we do this, we're going to help initially, but you're going to keep repeating. You're going to go from crisis to crisis. You're just going to keep coming back for the same problem.
Yeah.
Right. That's pretty wild. And so obviously you're into optimizing human performance. So we have like the sexual dysfunction. We have that piece of the puzzle. What about, do you work with people like athletic people or athletes, and what do you see like the biggest challenges a lot of them have? I know we have the whole spoke thing here that now you got me thinking like there's way too many spokes for us to probably talk about, but what is there like one spoke, if you will, that athletic people usually show up if they're looking for that performance model, that you create?
Yeah. Great question. I find that a lot of athletes, and I work with some retired Major League Baseball players. I work with actually a professional race car driver. I never realized how physically demanding that is. Actually,
Sure.
He actually won St. Pete Grand Prix a couple weeks ago. He actually won a race, which was pretty amazing. And of course, I took all the credit there.
Yeah,
it's all me. But actually, remarkably, overtraining is very common.
Okay.
A lot, what we got to understand is that when you're training, when you're exercising, lifting, strength training, et cetera, you're tearing down muscle. You're not building muscle. People think how do you build muscle? You work out. It's not the training. It's the recovery after the training is when the muscles get built. And so if you're training, crushing your body to the point that it doesn't have the ability or the time or the resources, the fuel, to repair itself and recover and build that muscle, then you're stressing the body. So we come back to how do we track that? Well, there's blood tests, lab functional tests we can do cortisol testing, et cetera. But we'll see that in the wearable tech data as well. So I see a lot of guys who are overtraining, and that stress is causing them to have difficulty building muscle, and it's a real problem.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that's huge. I mean, for me in the endurance world and the people that I take care of in a lot of these marathoners, that is definitely a huge piece of the challenge, and I know I guess all athletes will have maybe a period before an event or like a race car or a car race or a marathon or even baseball where they may have that week, 2 weeks where they're going to burn everything out to get that max training, in.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that. I did a 100-mile race in 2020 and, ran the first 60 miles, but talk about like mental, physical fatigue and burnout. And it took me like after a 50-mile race, I feel I go to work on Monday. Like I'm fine. Like everything is good, but all my training leading up to that 100 and then and then the 100 and then the days after, it was like a freight train ran over me and then looked back and goes, I think we missed a couple of parts and then went back over. I ate like a fiend after. And obviously I know with your total recovery, not just like I'm going to have a whole pie of pizza type of thing. We're going to have, we're feeding and refueling the body. So that's, that was a hard lesson for me that, I need to take those breaks. Otherwise it's easy to not be able to do it for a while because you don't have the energy or the function to do it. And you're just completely whooped.
Yeah. It's intentional, is living with intention. I talk a lot about is a phrase I like to use. It's intentional rest, recovery, and repair. And you can't do that if you're training hard every day of the week. You can't do that. And so there's again tremendous value in sleep, again, which is underappreciated. And that's truly, you know, when you're sleeping, that's when you're having the best repair and building muscle is while you're sleeping. Active recovery, you know, take some days and actually do some low intensity work, do some yoga, do some stretching, do some just walking, do some just leisure that's not crushing your body. It's okay to take some days and not go 100%. You're supposed to do that. And also, you know, create time for leisure as well. You know, what are your hobbies that you like to do that maybe you're not doing because you're so driven to perform? And that's raising cortisol. Again, it comes back to stress. Stress is crushing us. And over 60% of adults are struggling with the consequences of stress. And so it's understanding that you got to back off sometimes.
Yeah. That psychology will impact the physiology in an immense way too. You know, you know, I think that alpha type athletic male that like is always charging and charging and charging, like there will be a wake up call, you know, not if, when, like it will happen. And
there you go.
And it's ultimately, that's like that. It's gotta be the learning step for people like me and maybe even you in your past when you were charging and, you know, with work, right? That's the same thing. I mean, you were at 100%. I mean, you said high volume practice. I can imagine, right? You're seeing all these patients. You have got a decade of school before you start doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had your head down, paying off school loans and working your tail off. And that's probably was like the hugest piece of your health puzzle was that mental, physical stress, right?
Yeah. And traditional healthcare doesn't address that at all. That stress component, whether you're a performance athlete, whether you're a professional, executive, entrepreneur, physician, attorney, doesn't matter. Business owner, it being intentional about not letting that stress overcome you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a couple more questions for you. One, where are the best places for people to find you that are now going, I need to talk to this guy or learn more?
Oh, yeah. Sure thing. Yeah. So gapininstitute.com is my brick and mortar center here in Sarasota, Florida. We do a lot of work with both men and women now. Actually, I have a nurse practitioner handling female hormones. We do a lot of peptide therapy, a lot of hormone optimization. I have an integrated program called N1 Performance Health, where I integrate medical management with coaching, with genetics, wearable tech, and helping guys put all these pieces together to really upgrade their health, upgrade their life. So gapininstitute.com. My personal professional site is drtracygapin.com as well. And then I have a text opt-in if you want, where they get information as well. I can share if
of course.
Like
and then we'll drop that in the show notes as well, for sure.
Cool. Yeah. So your listeners can text the word health to 26786. Again, that's health to 26786. And they'll get a copy of my Secrets to High Performance Health. They'll actually get a complimentary digital copy of my book, Male 2.0, which was a best-selling book I published last year. And they'll get a link if they want to book a discovery call with my team to understand how we can work together as well.
Well, you answered both questions. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. This is fun. This has been great. I love learning and I have more stuff to actually learn. I appreciate you give me a little extra help. And everybody stay tuned. We're going to pick this up in the video portion of the show. So stay tuned. Dr. Tracy Gapin, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
You bet.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Human Powered Life podcast. Make sure to head over to lifestylelocker.com to check out all the details on the show and to watch part 2 of this episode, which is only in video format. We also have this audio portion in video format if you want. Once again, I'm your host, Dr. Josh Hant, for the Human Powered Life podcast, and I'm looking forward to staying connected with you as a Human Powered Life hero. Remember to join the tribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.